Radio app. All right, boys and girls, take a seat and listen up as we take a trip down memory lane with Marc Daniels in this week's history lesson.
Gather around, boys and girls. Today's history lesson will take you back in time and bring you to the present. One of the great things, and there's many about college football, if you put aside the transfer portal and coaching buyouts and all that stuff, traditions of college football make it indeed different than the National Football League. In the NFL, there are great rivalries. The Cowboys and the Commanders, although for decades known as the Cowboys and Redskins, and the Browns and the Steelers, and other games that are big. But college football's rivalries and the traditions make it the beautiful game that it is. And Saturday night in South Bend, Indiana, what might be the final time for the foreseeable future, two of the greatest programs in college football will play. The fact that no contract exists, that USC and Notre Dame will play in 2026, should embarrass college football. It should embarrass the two schools that are involved in this. It should embarrass the TV partners and everybody else, that one of the greatest rivalries the game has may not be played again in the foreseeable future. But the history of USC and Notre Dame, it's the fabric of college football if you go back. And to go back, we do in our history lesson. And it takes us to a time of how the series even began. In the 20s, college football was significantly different. Knute Rockne was beginning to build something at Notre Dame. Well, Rockne and USC athletic director Gwen Wilson began discussing the idea of Notre Dame traveling west. You see, the Irish used to go as far west as Lincoln, Nebraska to play a football game against the Cornhuskers. And the idea was to maybe have Knute Rockne bring his football team, instead of Thanksgiving to Lincoln, Nebraska, to come out west and play a football game. Well, Knute Rockne didn't like the idea, but his wife did. And his wife got along with the USC AD's Gwen Wilson's wife, and they said, you know what, coming to LA may be great. Get out of the cold, promote the brand in California. There was Notre Dame alums, and it said that that was the idea behind the USC-Notre Dame rivalry. At least one version is. There's other versions that Notre Dame and USC had talked about it, but there was political and financial pushback of it. Knute Rockne knew that he had a brand in Notre Dame that could make money going to play road games. Well, the Big Ten, as you know today, featuring 18 teams, was the Western Conference back then, with not yet 10 teams. And most of them refused to play Notre Dame because the Big Ten, get this in today's college football world, didn't like the commercialization of what Notre Dame was about and playing for big bucks. So the Irish were in many ways blacklisted of playing teams from the Western Conference. And as the Irish looked to find opponents to play that made regional sense, and yes, the military academies were among them, it also became apparent that going west was a pretty good idea. Just depends on who you want to believe as for the actual reason why the two teams began to play a series. The series began in 1926 between USC and Notre Dame, and it became one of college football's biggest games. And most trips out west for Knute Rockne and other Notre Dame teams to follow was a marketing machine. The Irish would go out, get there by train early in the week. Notre Dame alums threw big parties that became the elite of the elite to attend, and it was financially beneficial for Notre Dame. This football game has been played for a long time. In fact, when they play in South Bend on Saturday, it'll be the 96th all-time meeting between the two teams. You still might find an argument about who's won exact number of games, but it is the 96th all-time meeting between the two squads. And over the years, they've given some incredible football games to fast forward beyond the 20s, which, by the way, featured a football game in 1927. It's believed to be the largest crowd to ever attend a college football game. The 1926 game, the very first game play, was a 13-12 win for Notre Dame. Knute Rockne said it's the greatest game he'd ever seen. But the following year, USC and Notre Dame played at Soldier Field in Chicago. Notre Dame won 7-6. The crowd said to be better than 120,000 people, the largest to ever see a college football game. Over the years, the rivalry has had some incredible matchups, only taking a couple of years off during World War II. Through the 40s and 50s and 60s, there were heroes that made seasons. They were heroes that led to national championships. And as college football began to grow in the 70s and 80s, USC Notre Dame was must-watch television. With a limited supply of games, it was a big game every year on TV. And there are many famous games, depending on what side you want to believe has more important moments. In 1977, Dan Devine was in his third year as a football coach at Notre Dame. John Robinson is his second year after John McKay left for the NFL. The Irish were 4-1, while the Trojans were 5-1. Dan Devine, though, had something in mind to give his football team another reason to get out there and play. And using that mind game during the pregame warmups, the Irish came out in the traditional navy blue jerseys. When they went back to the locker room, they found the emerald green jerseys, the famous green jersey football game. Notre Dame stormed out of the locker room and indeed played like a champion that 1977 fall day. They beat USC 49-19. The Irish had their swing of victories. USC had their swing of victories as well. And it's funny that as this football game plays what might be its final game for the near future, it's 20 years ago, the famous game. In South Bend, Indiana, Notre Dame and USC played a back-and-forth football game and a cold day that became night. The Irish took the lead with 2 minutes left when Brady Quinn had a touchdown run, and Notre Dame had to make a stop. Matt Leinart led USC down the field, converted a 4th-and-9 pass to Dwayne Jarrett to put the ball at the Irish 15-yard line. As Leinart scrambled, he dove towards the end zone and knocked it about short of the goal line. The ball gets knocked out. The clock shows 7 seconds, but the clock kept running. As it struck 0, Pete Carroll screaming from the sideline that there should be time on the clock. Notre Dame fans stormed the field celebrating. There's no instant replay in 2005. All it was the officials huddling and making a decision. Without the use of replay, the decision was made to put 7 seconds on the clock. You're thinking, well, couldn't they go to what? There was no replay booth. Well, somebody had to. There wasn't. The officials had no communication to the press box, put 7 seconds back on the clock. By now, you probably remember what happened next. Whatever you think of the Philadelphia Eagles today and their special play, in 2005, Notre Dame found themselves in a situation that USC didn't clock it to kick the game-winning field goal. Nope. Matt Leinart got the snap, and Reggie Bush pushed him from behind across the goal line. The famous Bush push, which was an illegal play in 2005. You couldn't do that in college football. Notre Dame screamed, USC celebrated, and the call stood as a touchdown, and USC won 34-31. Charlie Weiss was the football coach of Notre Dame, and afterwards told about the illegal play, said, I would hope if I was in a similar situation, my running back would do the same thing. Reggie Bush and the famous Bush push of Matt Leinart led to that victory 20 years ago. Fast forward, and in this football game, Notre Dame likely has to win out to make the college football playoff. USC with 1 loss may be the real deal, but an ultimate test comes in what should be a high-scoring football game. But again, there's nothing that says the two teams will play in 2026 and no game scheduled for the immediate future. That's sad for college football. Many things have changed. And the fact that we've reached a point that what one might argue is one of our great games, one of our great rivalries, and the many heroes and coaches that have played in this football game, and 2 of the biggest brands have no contract to play beyond this year, as I said when I began this history lesson, should be embarrassing to everybody in college football. I hope it's a classic, and I hope somehow, some way, smart minds say, whatever it takes, we've got to schedule this football game because it's the fabric of college football. So it might be the final time. Here's to the great rivalry of Notre Dame and USC one more time in South Bend Saturday night. That's the history lesson. Back to wrap up the Thursday show next.